This is an interview we take with Everett Kircher at Boyne Mountain Resort some time ago. Exciting interview with Jack Berry, and we'll be doing the lead a bit later. Mr. Kircher, we're going to ask you a series of questions. Jack Berry, Dean of Golf Writers, as you know, has a great history and knowledge of the game of golf and about some of the things you've been involved in. So he's going to be asking you most of the questions.
Okay, Everett, you made Michigan the #1 resort in the Midwest and started out from a very small operation. You were a skier then, an outdoorsman. How did this all evolve that you got into coming up north here after you've been going out to Sun Valley for so many years, and you picked this hill to start what's turned into an enormous operation, biggest family-owned recreation operation in the United States?
Well, we started in 1948 here at Boyne Mountain, mostly as a lark, and we didn't expect to make a business of it, and we certainly couldn't have when I knew all the skiers by their first name in Michigan, and so we started we bought a used lift from Sun Valley for $2,000, a junk lift, and it was the first lift ever built in the world, and it still is in operation. And
where do you have that working now?
well, that's this lift that's on Victor and Aurora, and it was the first. That's the first chairlift ever built in the world. When they started Sun Valley, it was supposed to be a pretty classy operation, and so they couldn't afford in those days a tramway or an aerial tramway, which was in the $6 to $7 million in those days. So they settled for a contest. Union Pacific started in Sun Valley, so Union Pacific had a contest among their engineers who could come up with the best concept for a lift to take you up a hill, and it couldn't be a gondola. That'd be too easy a guess, but and too expensive. So they had this contest, and they used to load. This engineer knew of a device to carry bananas unload off a ship, at
Right.
Two levels, the same level, not up a mountain, and they concluded that if you could
move bananas, you could move skiers, right?
a mile away, they might take it up a hill. So they started experimenting with it, and they put a hanger head, which they had to fashion themselves, on a pickup truck, and they drove the pickup truck along to see if you could load people at what speed. Once they found that out, why then they could build a lift, and that was the first chairlift ever built anywhere in the world.
Now, when you got into that and you brought the lift here, were you thinking of it as being that this was going to be a weekend
For the same
fun for you and your friends, or did you look at it as a
Well,
business?
we're going to start Boyne, and it has to be a unique transportation. Transportation has to be nearly as good as you can make it, and knowing they were building chairlifts, that became our first choice.
So then, how did?
So I built a single chair, and I didn't have the money to buy a brand new one. That might have been $35,000.
But
So
a lot of money at that time.
That's right. I can remember when at Walloon there was a house, and I was living in a hotel at the time, And they went $40,000 for it. A brick house on Walloon, right on the water, and that house is worth $1 million today. And so
Now, the ski season doesn't go real long. What happened then that made you transition into golf?
well, the ski business was expensive enough, but and of course we started with Jim Christensen and John Norton and I started Bowen. They were the three stock movers. Well, Don Norton died, and we picked up his stock, and
What about Jim? He was
Jim
still with you for
Jim,
quite a while, wasn't
we
he?
bought his stock out, and so it left me the only stockholder. And then I'm the only finance person, so it became very burdensome, as you can see outside. All that steel cost millions of dollars, which we don't have, but we have a lot of credit. It seems that we have more credit than we have brains. And I have a son who thinks so. Or two of them, in fact. The two of them have done a magnificent job. As I've gotten older, they have responded beautifully, and they've taken over very well. So I think a man is very fortunate when he plans it and trains his kids to be presidents of many ski resorts.
When we look at the growth of Boyne USA Resorts, which is just spectacular, and it's a family-owned business, and it started with 40 acres and $1. Were you that good a businessman at the very start that you could start this project with $1?
Well, the $1 was all the 40 acres cost that we built Amlock on, and that was extra capital. That was people who believed and believed in us, because he said, well, "What do you want to use it for?" And I said, "Well, we want to build a ski resort." And he said, "Well, anybody who wants to ski on that hill, I just give it to them. And I wouldn't even sell it to him." And it was full of trees. He had no idea what we're going to do with it, other than what we said we're going to do. But he believed it.
Well, it certainly turned out. Now, by the mid-50s, you bought the property, I think, in about 46 or 47.
Yeah.
By the mid-50s, you decided that you needed something here besides skiing when the weather was different.
That's right.
Tell us about how you got to the point and your first golf course.
Well, after we were in business, we had to have a bar. So that found its way. So I found a way. And I had an old crony who was on the ski patrol. He says, "Everett, what you need is a golf course." And we were looking at this weed patch through the window, and it appeared to me that being green instead of weedy and round was a more attractive site. But so we built it.
That was Bill Harbour was
Yeah,
the
Bill
ski
Harbour
patrolman, and he was a golfer, wasn't he?
He had been on the University of Oregon golf team, and so he knew. We thought he knew. He knew a lot more about golf than we did. So,
But you've always been a pretty quick learner, right? You
Well,
got into the books and
Yeah.
learned how to design a course.
well, we designed it because it was an open field. You could see this is the high lows, and of course it didn't cost us much because it wasn't irrigated properly. It was irrigated with these old sprinkler heads.
And that was your dad's old tractor, an old Ford tractor?
And with an old tractor and some plowing material, you could break up the ground and plant a fairway. This is where the green's gonna be.
How much of that course remains, of that original 9 holes?
Well, the last of it is where the hotel is. That's the last part. It's been done several times, but that's the original course.
So what made you go then from the little 9-hole executive course at Boyne Mountain to hiring Robert Trent Jones to do a great big championship course up at
Well,
Boyne Highlands?
This is much later, after we got Magda bucks, you know. And so we were successful because, you see, we were successful because the jet airplane had not invented yet. And everybody in the Midwest heard about skiing in Boyne and the chairlift, and that attracted them.
And
The
your ski
chairlift
weeks,
was-
right?
And then Stein Erickson
Right.
did all that, did his flips here.
So this was the hot place to be.
This was the hot place, that's right. This is the place to be. This is the Midwestern Sun Valley.
But the snow melts in the spring, and then you have a lot of employees, and what happens then?
Well, then you start putting it back. And so it was necessary to have something to do in the summer, and golf was the natural thing.
And how did you happen to hire Jones, who had made a
Well,
mark at Oakland Hills by toughening that up?
In those days, he was the leading architect in the architectural field. But
Now
I can remember.
you and Jones kind of had a little
Well,
bit of a crusty
to show you-
relationship, didn't you?
To show you the relationship, of course, in those days, I thought I was equal to him.
And he thought.
And he thought he was king of the hill. And there can't be two kings on that hill. I
So-
can remember one incident where I built a trap, and he just came in on, occasionally. And I was there 7 days a week. And he said, and I left a pine tree in the trap. And he says, "Whoever see a pine tree in a trap?" I see, "You see one now, don't you?"
Now, you said that you changed a number of the holes that he originally
Well,
designed.
to
didn't
see
you?
what he'd get on a jet airplane. By then, jet airplanes were very popular. And so in his seat in the airplane, he saw this flat ground, and he didn't realize there were no trees there because it was a swamp. Well, that's before the Wetland Act. So we could just get in there and do anything we wanted to do, except that I'm not gonna cross a marsh, blueberry marsh, and, but without filling it. And so we start filling the blueberry marsh, and which is strictly we couldn't build that golf course again today.
And yet it's turned into a
But
signature
on the other
golf
hand,
course.
we had to redesign some of the holes. They were called for fill in the long fairways. We just made a crossing.
Now, one of the biggest changes you made was on, and it's become a Boyne signature, is the pond on 18. Talk about that a little bit. How did that come
As
about?
that turned out, that was an accident that happened several times without our knowing it. We finished every hole in those days on water, so we continued that process. So I thought it'd be kind of neat if you're gonna have a tournament that have a big bunch of water that everybody's got to hit over, and because water is so final.
It's final, that's right. Now, how many balls did you ever put a ball or two in that water?
Oh, in the 18th
On 18?
one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I have many times. But
You know, Mr. Kircher, that course, the Jones course in the 60s when it opened, and then of course later it was recognized as one of the top courses in America and still has a tremendous reputation. That course really started the golf boom in northern Michigan, and as we said, brought it to where we're summer golf capital of America. In reading your biography and knowing a little bit about your personal philosophy, most of the time in the ski business, you just either sold out or bought out the opposition or just outworked them. And yet you opened the door for the golf industry in northern Michigan that we've never had before. Were you anticipating that one course and the attention it would bring would turn northern Michigan into such a golf capital?
Well, we've also started the real estate boom. And of course, the golf boom and real estate boom are what keeps northern Michigan alive today. That's why there's all the traffic.
But didn't you resist selling any real estate for quite a while?
When we first started, a lot was, you could buy a lot for $500 almost at any ski resort. And I said, well, that's not enough money. We'll have all our real estate will be gone, and we got nothing for it. And that didn't make any sense to me. So we were the last to get in the real estate business. As you know, people used to leave Boyne because they wanted to buy real estate, because why aren't you in the real estate business? That was the beginning of the boom. But and then I remember there's a little house built on the entrance at the Highlands.
Right.
It's a pretty little house. That was built by, we leased him the land. And then he built the house.
That's right along the first fairway, right by the first hole.
He was the executive with out of Chicago.
With Sears, wasn't it?
For Sears.
Yes. But it was a long time before you started selling lots on the golf course.
That was our first venture into real estate.
And now isn't that, that's a major part of the business,
I can
isn't
remember
it?
I can remember driving past that house and saying, I'll bet you one day this house will be worth, that lot will be worth $5,000.
Well, talk about how different the prices are these days. You paid Robert Trent Jones $30,000 to design the Highlands, and architects these days get $1 million and more for designing golf courses.
If you want to buy a signature golf course, that's $1 million. Just to start.
That doesn't include moving the land or anything else.
And you got to buy the land. Then you got to hire the architect for $1 million.
Now, you've often said that skiing is what pays for the golf, that you get so many more people on the hill on a weekend than you can get on a golf course. Well, isn't the ski season's a little short, though, isn't it, compared to the golf season?
You got to remember, you put 200 people a day through a golf course that might cost you $3, $4, $5 million, and a clubhouse, and all the junk, and the ski hill is really nowhere near that expensive, and we can ski many times that number of people. We have skied as many as 10,000 people per resort.
But in the real estate side of it, doesn't the summer season sell more than the winter season?
Well, we're hoping it does.
That'll be the fuel for the engine that's
well, that'll be
behind the expansion.
Well, you see, if you build a house, you know damn well that there's gonna be a rat in it. Called a rat house. And so, you know damn well they're gonna come here because this is where their skis are. And same with golf. You're gonna come up north and play golf. where your skis are. Where you build a house, second home or a third home, and it's been working out for us.
Let's talk a little bit after the Heather course, and then you had the Moore course. Then there's a couple of other unique courses. One is the Monument. Talk to us a little bit about the Monument course, and then the other one I want you to talk about. I think you and your son Steve traveled all over the world looking at Donald Ross courses, and you have a Donald Ross course. Tell us about the Monument and the Donald Ross courses.
Well, we've I designed and built the Monument course, and we took we started out with we're going to honor a past great golfer. That's why we call it the Monument. And we're going to have build these little tees and call it the Nicholas course, Nicholas tees. Although Nicholas has never been one of my favorite people, but he was making more money than I was. And so we were successful with it, and we had the land to do it with. We had all the hills, and it just anybody but a damn fool could build a golf course. And so we were the damn fools that did it, and that we would call it the Monument. However, then we were sick and tired of paying this $1 million for an architect when we could get Donald Ross for free. And we did a little research and found out that we didn't owe anything to the heirs by doing it, and so we were free of lawsuits. And and we also liked and admired what he had done, and he'd done a very good job on many famous golf courses. That's why they were famous, and because he'd done such a great job, and he worked at Pinehurst for a number of years, and all those years he built number 2 at Pinehurst, and that's a very famous golf course. But it had been gone to weeds and things, and the time I played it, you had to tee your ball up. You had to find a piece of grass.
That was in kind of a down period for Pinehurst.
That was our down period.
Some different owners.
Well, that's before Club Corp bought it.
Correct. And now it's back to being a jewel.
Now they've restored it back to it's the queen of all golf courses. Because it's got the name, and it's got the design, and it's got the loving care that is needed on the golf courses.
Now, speaking of design, when you started the Alpine course here at the mountain, and you had Bill Newcomb, who happened to be worked for Pete Dye a few years earlier than that. He was a young former Michigan amateur champion, and he worked with you on that. How did you decide to start a golf course 1.5 miles away from the golf shop? That was unheard of, and up a mountain, going up through the woods. How did that come about?
Well, understand your question. You say we were involved with. Pete Dye was involved in.
No. Bill had worked for Pete Dye
okay.
prior to that. But here you start a golf course 1.5 miles away from the golf shop, 1.5 miles away from the cash register, really. And how did that come about? And now you also start the monument from up there.
Well, I might say that our experience with Newcomb would indicate that we get as far away from him as we could.
But tell us a little bit about the trip going up through the woods.
Well, that was necessary because we decided that we're gonna reverse the golf. We're gonna start on the top of the hill and finish at the bottom, because that's the way the mountain was designed. And since then, there's been a ton of golf courses built following that same theory. And it's worked out, and it's been very successful. But it's never been so successful as the Jones name, the Jones course, or so you're better off if you got a lousy piece of ground, put a good golf course name on it.
Now you have another strong golf course at the Highlands, the Arthur Hills course, and I think that your instructions at the beginning of that were to make a course that was playable for
As it
for you
turns
and Lois, right?
As
For
it
you and
turns
your
out
wife.
that, well, you see, Bill Harbor is a friend of Arthur Hills, and he wanted me to always hire Arthur Hills, and being so, I honored him by finally doing it. And it was an honor to Arthur Hills to be accepted by us. So he's done 3 golf courses for us. He did a great job
On Bay Harbor.
at the Highlands.
Right.
And
Well, the one at the Highlands, isn't that where you kind of instituted a more forward tee?
oh yes,
And tell us
Well,
about that. How did that come about?
I had a theory that as a guy got older, and of course as I got older, I got this lesson. I mean, when I hit it off the tee, I just knew I couldn't hit it any further than 150 yards, because 150 yards is a nice drive for women. And some of the guys are struggling out there, like Bill Harbor hits it at 250, but sideways. And I could always play him because beat him, because he would hit it sideways and take 5 or 6 hitting back. But on the other hand, men, I'm a little guy, and I knew damn well as I got older, I'm not going to hit that ball 220 yards. I couldn't hit it with 220 yards when I was 18. And so as I got older, I knew that I wanted to play golf, up to my 65 years. I mean, even that old, As I sit here at 85, this is my birthday today.
Right.
Yes, happy birthday.
At 85, I would better start getting ready if I'm going to play the course, get out of my wheelchair, and hit the ball. And everybody's hope is hope is what drives you to play the next game.
Yes.
It's the hope that you're going to hit it as well this time as you did last time. And so keep your eye on the ball.
So you moved up, you put in some additional tees so that you could
Well, yes,
reach the
all of our
fairways.
tees were out there 220, and you couldn't play our courses if you couldn't get the ball any further than that. So it's necessary for you to naturally shorten up your tee. But then the second shot is the one that matters. But then your second shot is way ahead of everybody else's if you use the shorter tee. But you can adjust it at that point.
Mhm. You were certainly associated with internationally recognized ski people, enthusiasts during your time in skiing, and certainly brought some here to work at Boyne at your resort. What about golf? Did you really get to the point, now you work with some architects, but did you really get involved with the golf pros in times of your career?
Well, we had to hire them, and they had to have them, so they worked, we naturally worked with those that we did hire.
Who was your favorite professional golfer? Your favorite professional golfer? Did you have a golfer that you really liked?
Oh, he has to be the old guy. It was 85 years old, Sam Snead.
Okay.
See,
Those golfers of that era are in my era, and they're my favorite, along with Ben Hogan.
Did you travel around the United States, around the world to play golf? As you did your skiing, you'd go out
No,
west. Did you do the same at golf?
I played around the country at all the while we were building the Ross course. I toured many of them, and all those were Ross courses, and we were welcomed. Everybody was delighted with that concept, and they welcomed us with open arms, because it was a credit to their golf course. Someone wanted to build their hole.
You, just as you had your ski weeks, you started a golf week, and it's probably one of the best golf packages in America, is the golf week that you offer here at Boyne. Was that an economical decision, or did you really see that there was a market niche?
You see, like I said, the jet airplane had not been built, but yet our ski weeks, therefore, were immensely popular. And so I just took a lesson out of the past and said, if it worked for skiing, maybe it'll work for golf. Well, it has worked for golf. We set our sights on 100 golfers a week, and we have 120 now.
Mm.
you have Boyne, USA, 11 golf courses spread around the United States, from Big Sky, Montana to Boyne South in Florida, 9 courses up here in northern Michigan. What is any one of those your favorite, or what of all the projects you've been involved in, what's given
Yes,
you
you
the
have.
most kick?
Everybody has his favorite golf course. That's the one he plays the most.
And the one you play the most
The one right here.
is the Alpine course.
That's right.
And what's your best score there?
What was my score?
Right.
When I quit playing golf, I shot a 78 as my last game.
Wow.
But I said, I'm not going to improve on that, but I'm not so sure.
Well, you were always a fabulous skier, so did that translate at all into playing golf?
If I could hit a golf ball the way I can feel on a pair of skis, I'd have been I'd changed my name to Sam Snead.
Well, you did have Sam here one time, and Kathy Whitworth when at the monument, right? And dedicated the hole to him, or had him dedicate a hole.
Well, I don't know how to answer that, but
Well, at the monument course, I believe there's a hole with your name on it.
oh yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, if I was gonna name a famous golfer, why not the golf course architect?
Well, that's a great reason. I want to just go back now. We're celebrating your 85th birthday today. It all started in Detroit, didn't it? Tell us a little bit about growing up and some of the experiences. You've been in Michigan all your life. Tell us about those early years.
Well, my life started with Ford Motor Company in 1927, when the Ford Motor Company offered $5 a day. And my father was an aspiring automobile mechanic. He wasn't yet. And so he came to Detroit riding the rails, probably from St. Louis, and where I was born. And he went to work for Denby Motor Company and Ford first. And he couldn't keep my father in a factory. And just like I have a fellow working for me now, Austrian. He lives in my house now, he and his wife. And he disappeared. It's because his wife put him in a factory. You can't put an Austrian in a factory and expect him to be happy. Not when he can't yodel and run around. And anyway, that any more than you could keep my father in the factory. So he left the factory and started his own garage and started pulling those deadbeat trucks into his two-car garage, which he had to build in a hurry. And so that was exactly what we started at. I mean, I remember carrying my father's lunch to him day after day after day during vacation periods when I wasn't in school, and we were happy doing it. And my father worked 6.5 days a week, and on Sunday we'd get in the Haynes car and we'd go for a drive. That was the week. That's week entertainment.
You said that during those Depression years and tough years, your family did okay, that your dad's working on, you did all right during that time.
That's right. He did, he was a hard worker, and anybody was willing to work hard, why, if he had an opportunity to work, could make ends meet.
Now, before you got into the resort business, you had a couple of ventures. One or two you said didn't work out quite as well. Some car sales and trailer sales. Tell us a little bit about those experiences.
I started in a trailer business, house trailer business, before people were living in them, when they were made for build, only trailers would. And I was renting them out, and they cost me maybe $500 in those days, and I would rent a trailer out under our rental program, and I'd pay for the trailer in 1 year, or even in a half a year. I was renting them for $100 a week, and in those days that was pretty damn good money. But then on the other hand, I had to charge that much because a guy could drive away with it. So we took precautions against it. And but the one story goes into another. We started selling them, and I was taking the finance charges off the finance company's chart. And God, their rate was almost 20% a year, equating back. So, and then the insurance, you have to have a license to sell insurance. We didn't have a license to sell insurance, so we just included insurance into the package. Then, curiously enough, we ran out of money. That's no question about that. We're not in the finance business or an insurance business, so we're not wealthy. So we don't have a bottomless pit. So we sold our paper to a fellow in Grand Rapids called Mr. Fry. Mr. Fry also went in the insurance business after he read some of the prices I was getting for insurance, my insurance costs. He jumped into the insurance business and exclusively selling insurance on house trailers. I invested $100,000 in that company many years later and walked out of the stock market with $2 million. So it tells you what I missed. That's what I missed.
Yes. What about the car dealership? It wasn't quite as successful a story, was it?
No. That's one of my success stories. That's the first time I ever told it. But that's a true story. I didn't even put in my book.
Was that the Foremost Insurance? Is that what that became?
Foremost, yeah.
Yeah.
They sold out to another company, and now the Fry family, the old man is dead now. The Fry family has started a foundation, and they're just giving the money away, you know.
The largest insurer of mobile homes in the country.
That's right.
Certainly in your lifetime, you've seen America go through a lot of changes, the state of Michigan go through a lot of changes, the city of Detroit go through a lot of changes. As you look back, what's your feeling? I mean, you had a philosophy, work ethic. What's your general sense as you just take a minute and look back on the last 85 years?
Well, I've grown stronger a Republican since all this, since Roosevelt, and I don't think our family just you are what your family is. If your family is a Democratic, why you're going to end up being a Democrat or a Catholic or whatever it is. And so I was fortunate enough to just be born a Republican, and that was right.
You certainly have kept your family involved in this process. But there are some other individuals that have played a big part in your life and the development, serving as general managers and serving as friends. Who are a couple of those people? And certainly I want you to talk about your family too, because you've got all the children involved.
Chuck Ball was a best general manager we ever had, and unfortunately he's gone. But that's what we're all going to go, and you face that in business, and so you load what you can practically on one person, and he could take a load, and he worked very well, and he was Dutch and frugal and a good businessman. Without him, I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am today.
And the children? The children?
And
Oh, yeah.
Stephen and John and your daughters?
I have 4 children. They're all in the business here. My eldest son, Stephen, my youngest son, Stephen, is here in their eastern operations, and John Kircher is in our western operations. I put him on a Big Sky, and that was in the early days. That was a rough trip, and everybody was shooting at us because I'd bought it from Chrysler Corporation. Therefore, we carried the same image as Chrysler Corporation, and everybody's shooting at us. Like everybody's shooting at the dollars, you know.
So you've made that into a very successful operation out there, right?
Well, he's turned it into a fabulous resort, and he's aggressive and young and willing to take a chance.
Stephen's kind of doing the same thing around here.
And Stephen started doing the same thing around here. And now we find that they're shooting at us because we went too far and too fast.
Do you think that you have?
I know we have. When we're living on credit.
You always wanted
we
to.
gotta borrow the money to pay the bills. That's too far. That's further than I ever went.
You always followed a more conservative
right.
line and built a pretty nice operation out of it.
Well, it just takes more time. But youth is not willing to wait. They want it all right now.
Of all this time, over your 85 years and what you have done in the resort business, what gives you the most pleasure? Do you sit back at night and think about everything that you've done? What do you especially get a big kick out of?
Well, if you sit back and count the dollars you owe versus the dollars coming in, that's...
No, I'll get on the positive side now. Come on, you have to get some smiles, some pleasure, some happiness out of this. You've got that one sign in here someplace, he who dies with the most toys wins, whatever. Well, you've had a lot of toys, and
That's right.
certainly,
Too many toys.
and you have,
Too many toys when you get 85.
you hunted and you fished all over the world, you've played
Well, that's
golf,
right,
you've
that's
skied
right.
with Olympic champions, you hired Olympic champions. That's a pretty strong resume.
Well, that's the proper words to put in the word called satisfaction. But
Is there anything else? Is there anything else that you want to do specifically that you haven't done? Have you accomplished most of the goals that you wanted, or the things that you wanted to do in life, or is there still something else you want to do?
well, a year ago I would have said I want to build a new hotel, and I've always said that. That's probably this is where I started, and this is where I'd like end up. But are you going to say give up or end up? What's the end of the story? Is there more to it than that?
Somehow I think there's going to be a lot more to it. I really appreciate the time you've taken with us today, because you're known as Michigan's resort pioneer. You came looking for a real mountain, as you called it, and you found Boyne Mountain, and now you have other ski resorts. You've made a tremendous impact on the state of Michigan, and in fact the whole United States, and so much to be recognized for, and we appreciate the time you've taken here to tell us a little bit about those experiences. So thanks for joining with us in this.
Well, thank you for putting the show together,
Thank you.
and particularly Jack Berry, that I've known for a lot of years.
You may have to tell me after we go off the air. You may have to tell me how many years, because he won't tell me.
Welcome to this very special edition of Michigan Skier TV. I'm your host, Jim Neff. If you've ever carved a great arc across a field of man-made snow, or ridden a modern chairlift, or spent a week at a resort, a full-service one, you have our guest to thank. Our very special guest today is the legendary ski pioneer and founder of Boyne USA Resorts, Everett Kircher. Mr. Kircher, it's a great honor and privilege to be with you here today to talk to you about the sport that you love so much, skiing. Before there was a Boyne Mountain, let's go back to those thrilling days of yesteryear when Everett Kircher, the young man, developed a love for skiing, which may have been an odd thing for someone to develop in the state of Michigan. Tell us a little bit about what it was like to grow up skiing in Michigan in those early days.
Well, to start with, there was no skiing or ski resorts in Michigan when I first started. There was Otsego was then called Vanderbilt. And the Vanderbilt Club was the only people skiing in the United States at that time. Those were people, they were the wealthy people who had gone to school in Europe or someplace else. And they got together and started a ski club called Vanderbilt Ski Club at Vanderbilt, Michigan. And for this purpose of continuing to ski in later life. And that's how it all started. And then that branched into Don McLeod was a member of that club, and he wanted to go off by himself and build a bigger hill, just like I did. And then that's what held the club together. Up until that time, they were teaching the Arlberg, which is the STEM Christie type thing. And when I got into business, I had to have more skiers because I knew all the skiers by their first name, and I felt that wasn't enough people to stay in business. So we had to expand and teach better skiing, and we went into the modern technique, but all of which has led to things like Stein Eriksen to teach it, and then later on Otmar Snyder to continue that theory. But we've been struggling along for 51 or 2 years now, and we still need more skiers, and so we're building more facilities to attract more. Like I always said, we need a new hotel, and we had already started 52 years ago in a makeshift type thing, but Sun Valley has got the spas and they don't have an indoor pool, but we're going to have one, and so we've always been opposed to the indoor pool type thing, because we felt it was much more glamorous to swimming with snow on your head, and which does fascinate me just a little bit when it snows.
Now, looking back at the Everett Kircher of those 1930s and 40s, what was in your background that you determine now might have led to your success, even before you started thinking about ski resorts?
Well, you know, that's one, I can't answer that question, because I still don't know why I was attracted to a snowflake, a cold snowflake, instead of the lips of a beautiful girl or something. But anyway, I was hooked. And I think many people whoever really ski are hooked. It's like a narcotic. The feeling of a pair of skis, or the challenge of doing it right, and learning process. Although the skiers today, in 1 week, are skiing is better than most skiers ski in the rest of their lives with the new skis.
Well, eventually you determined that Michigan needed a ski resort, so you went out and looked for a piece of land, a mountain that you could develop. What brought you here to the current site of Boyne Mountain, and how did you acquire this land?
Well, bit by bit, or acre by acre, you wait for one person to die, and then you pick up his property, and that takes a long time to outlive everybody.
Now, that original purchase was from a state legislator, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. His name was Pearson, and he gave us the first 40 acres at Hemlock's on.
Now, the first run that you created was the legendary Hemlock,
Right.
which is still at the center of Boyne Mountain. But you know, those skiers in that first year just didn't buy a lift ticket and go out and ski. They had a few more responsibilities before you let them out on the slope. What did you have those skiers do on those first?
Oh, they had to pack the slope. It would snow maybe 4 or 5 inches that week, and if you didn't pack it, you'd ski it all off. So we were the first to get into snow conservation.
So that was sort of the earliest groomers were people groomers.
Yeah, that's right. People groomers. You walk down the slope with your skis and packed it down.
Now, the second year that you opened, you had Boyne Mountain open, you determined that you needed an attraction to get people here, and that's what led to the first chairlift in the Midwest. But that wasn't so simple as just let's put up a chairlift. There was a lot more involved with getting that off the ground, wasn't there?
Well, first off, you have to accumulate the money to buy it, and then have to have a mechanical fortitude, and I mean fortitude, to keep it running. But at the first chairlift we built, look, the chairlift, the cable looked like a porcupine. I mean, it had many breaks in it, and now under the new safety rules, if you have 2 breaks per foot or per mile, it's considered not usable anymore. You had to close it. But the first chairlift we had broken wires all over it because it was going over steel wheels, and those steel wheels were wearing a cable out.
Now, you got this chair from Sun Valley, is that
Right.
What kind of an operation was that, just to get the chair here and get it constructed?
Well, Victor Gottschalk was my construction man at the time, and he told me that lift was for sale, so I bought it. Then after I bought it, there was a bunch of legal fights with the guy who raises potatoes in Idaho, and Simplot. And Simplot was fighting us for the same chairlift. That was the first chairlift ever built in the world, and it was built on wooden posts, and the backstays were made of wood, and to keep it stabilized, because in those days you built the cable at right angles to the hill instead of this way into the hill, to take advantage of all the hills. We put the towers in at vertical to the slope, not to the air, but to the slope, and which is the wrong way to build them. And you have to put, see, then you got all the pressure. If you build it at right angles, you have you eliminate the possibility of any flexing of the chair sideways. In other words, it's versus this. We've learned that lesson 20, 30 years ago, and we build them all at right angles to the slope and not the air.
Well, by 1949, Boyne Mountain had hemlock and the region's first chairlift, and they were ready to go into the 1950s. Well, Boyne Mountain really took off in the 1950s and became a full-service ski resort.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get back and talk a little bit about the skiing in just a moment. But first of all, one of the little-known pieces of lore in Boyne history is the development of the Gatlinburg, Tennessee chair, and how that fit into the whole growth of Boyne, not only Boyne Mountain, but Boyne, USA, as you've gone through the years. Tell us how that whole thing came about, and why you decided to construct the chair down in Gatlinburg.
Well, we had been successful at hauling people, and an article appeared in a AAA magazine, and this guy Maples, the owner of the hotel, said, maybe you can build me one of them there lifts. And I said, and I have a mountain called Crockett Mountain. And so I said, well, I'll build it not for you, but if I like the mountain, I'll build it for myself. And so he agreed to that. And I went down to Gatlinburg, and I fell in love with Gatlinburg. Of course, mostly because I was a fisherman, and I loved the trout fishing in the Smokies, and naturally I just fell in love with the town, and that little church, and the church bells, and it was a romantic thing. But then I put my business hat on. I said, all these people walking down the street, this has got to be licensed to steal. So I agreed to build a lift. And it was about 1,000 feet vertical rise, and about twice of what we have here. And it's been a huge success. And of course, being a success, it helped Boyne grow in the early days. That was the first thing that made Boyne grow, was the money from that lift.
And it's continued to operate even as we speak. As I understand, it runs pretty much year-round,
Oh,
just
yeah.
a few days off.
Yep, so it runs in the summer, mostly. But as years gone by, we've been running it more and more, almost year-round now.
So you had a way to generate money to develop
that
the
was
resort. You had hemlock and the
And then
Midwest first chair.
we had the summer freedom to build ourselves, and it worked.
Well, you realized early on also that if skiers were going to come all this way up to Boyne Mountain, that they needed a place to stay. And that's
right.
when you started to develop the lodge and the Boyne
That's
Ski.
right.
Tell us a little bit about the thinking behind those.
Well, in the early days, before the jet airplane was built, it took you 3 days to get out west, out to a western area. Like Sun Valley was the only thing that you had available to you. And then there was a few, like Tremblant. We had to leave here and go to Tremblant if we wanted a place to stay during the war. And so there was Aspen hadn't even been thought of even at that time. We were first in ahead of all the rest of them. So we needed to have lodging and entertainment and this sort of thing, which we had. And it takes all that necessary to attract a person to stay, you know, for a week. You have to have a ski school, well organized, and I thought we did a pretty good job of that.
Now, I think those original Boyne 5-day ski weeks were about $49 for the entire week.
That's right.
And what did that include?
That included 3 meals, a lift ticket, and food for 5 days.
And that gave Boyne a place for people to ski. It gave Boyne a place for people to
That's
stay.
right.
And now, also in the 50s, you pioneered some things by bringing over Stein Erikson. And the addition of Stein initially gave Boyne that mystique.
That's right.
But bringing Stein over to become a part of the Boyne family required a little bit of negotiation on your part. How did you lure him over?
Well, we sold him a car, and Don Thomas knew him, met him at the Olympics, because at the Olympics in '52, there was nobody there. You know, in the ski business, the ski business was very small, and so they'd have their parties, and that's where. And then he was a salesman for me, and I was in the automobile business, in the Studebaker business. At that point, Stein came over and bought a Studebaker. When I was there, I was at the showroom, and when he delivered the car, and so then I said, why don't you come and work for us? You know, he said, I'll plan on it after the '54 World Series, World Championships, and that's the FIS. And so he won 3 gold medals. Well, what a find he was. So he came over, and he worked for us because I had invited him, and he was here for 2 years. And he did his flips, and he made us famous for his style. And
well, Stein, even today, cuts a pretty dashing figure. And in the old photos at Boyne Mountain and films, and I'm thinking of one TV commercial where he drives a station wagon out onto the slopes. Stein was a remarkable figure, and it kind of gave Boyne some identity, and really attracted quite a large following, particularly among the ladies.
Yep, he was a ladies' man.
Now, after Stein left, is that when Otmar came aboard?
That's right, he came in next. And he was with us for 17 years afterwards.
Now, would you consider him the founder and beginner of the Austrian?
So you might say that he was the founder of the modern technique.
Now, what did that entail? Because with Otmar, it started to develop that you could really tell a Boyne skier. Boyne skier could go anywhere and be known.
And they look like a Boyne skier.
Yes.
Because they've been through our ski week, and they skied the modern technique. No one had seen it before. For example, I became attracted to it when I realized that the modern technique was something brand new. Something was going on there that I didn't know about. And I immediately pushed it, and we taught it in our school, because I was most interested in what we were going to teach, because that was our future. But it was an entirely new way to make a slalom turn. You go through the gates like this, and the flush was a series of 6 poles, and you couldn't go through this way and that way, because there wasn't time to do it. So you had to had to go through this way and that way. And this was one complete turn. And you're ready for the next turn because you're going to turn back. So that made the slalom perfectly suited to the modern technique.
Now, with all this in place, was it in the 50s, late 50s, that you determined that snowmaking had to play a future in Boyne, or was it?
Well, then it realized if you're going to run a slalom, you have to have snow to do it on. And so it became natural affinity to have a friend called the Snowflake.
Well, in the 60s and 70s, there was a period of growth for Boyne, USA, and by this time, Boyne Mountain had developed into a full-fledged, full-service resort. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about what went on during the 60s and 70s. So far, so good?
Yeah,
Very nice.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yep.
In this special edition of Michigan Skier TV, we're talking to Everett Kircher, the founder of Boyne, USA. Well, Mr. Kircher, during the 60s, the destination resort business sort of changed. And you've alluded to that before with the coming of the bigger resorts out west and modern transportation, the jet airplane. How did that change the game for Boyne Mountain?
Well, it changed the game from a cash business to a borrowing business. So we had to grow up and change our ways, and we had to borrow a lot more money because things cost more and things were happening, and you had the big guys in the business. And so if you want to be a big guy, you've got to have big money.
Now, did the advance of the bigger resorts out west and the ease of travel cut into the weekday business of Boyne and
That's right.
change your way of thinking a little bit?
So we switched all of our attention to the West for many years and built the West with our technique, with our talent, and we'd been successful so far, and Boyne was started downhill here. And we used to say, the only thing going to stop it is a new hotel. And there, you see it.
In the 60s, you added Boyne Highlands, though, near
Yeah.
Harbor Springs.
Oh, that's right.
What led you to find that piece of property? And you know, the question would be, you already had Boyne Mountain, and why did you
Well,
develop a resort close
that
by?
was before. That's when we thought there was end of the expansion in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
We started the Highlands. It was newer, and so it had a better chance of success.
Now, during
And
the
rooms
60s,
are newer.
during the 60s, too, you added a lot of innovations, and I'm talking about the three-place chair, the four-place chair.
Oh yeah.
But what people may be surprised at the story behind the three-place chair, because the world's first three-place chair was here at Boyne, and also the world's first four-place chair. But how you came upon the idea for the three-place chair might
Well,
be an interesting story.
My wife and I were skiing, and my son John, who is now president of the company, and he was the third person. So if we could put three on a chair, why not on a two chair? We were both little, and so there was room to fit the third person in. And he rode up as three. It just dawned on us that if you could put three on a two-place chair, why not three on a three-place, a little wider one? And that led into something. Then we got that far. Then we went into a four-place, four people sitting. Well, that got a little bit more complicated, but we conquered all those little problems. And then we had then we built this, so I said, if you could have a 4-place, why not 6? And now they're building 8 places, 8-place lifts. Well, it's just a matter of constructing a hangar head that's big enough to carry the load safely. Because when you're going to carry 2 or 3, and you go up to 8 or 9, your liability gets much greater per chair, and so it works. But all 3 of those inventions were done here.
Also during the 60s, there were a lot of innovations in snowmaking. And when the original snowmaking happened, it was pretty much pressurized air.
Yeah,
out
well,
of
we
the
had
pipe, but
we had the patents on the first chairs, and on the air and water gun, and so we were the leaders in the innovation of snowmaking.
Now the guns that people are most likely to see now are the big, what you might call a barrel gun with the big fans, and those began here at Boyne.
Well, we can cover all of the mountain in a week, 1 week, and we just got everything covered.
And later, and I'm thinking probably this might have happened in the 80s or 90s, you develop an oscillator too, as I recall.
Well, it gives you an opportunity to make an early opening, to make more money, and open earlier and have more skiers.
Well, even as you developed snowmaking and the operations here in Michigan, as you said before, you decided to start looking west. And the first western expansion was in 1976, and that was with the purchase of Big Sky.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you had searched for a western property. Why did you settle on Big Sky, and what did that bring to the Boyne USA operation?
Well, Big Sky had all the land, had 10,000 acres of real estate, which we knew was going to be eventually valuable, and we also knew that I was then 65, going on 75, and I knew that I could never start a monster that big in my lifetime, the remaining lifetime. So we just bought it, and bought the years that it represented in development, and which is Chrysler Corporation had been losing their ass for several years, and wanted to get rid of it. So we were able to buy it on reasonable terms.
Now, at the same time, you started to, and this is a little off the track of skiing, but you started to develop golf courses here in Michigan so
Right.
that you could maintain a year-round operation.
That's right. Right.
Why was that important to the development of the
Well,
resorts?
the summer is your downtime, and the money seeps out the barrel, and you got to have something to keep your rooms filled, and conventions do that. Conventions was our first choice, but the golfer was second choice.
So through the 70s, Boyne, Michigan expanded into Boyne, USA. And then during the 80s and 90s, Boyne continued to expand. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the continued westward expansion of Boyne, USA.
Okay.
On this special edition of Michigan Skier TV, we're talking to the legendary founder of Boyne USA Resorts, Everett Kircher. And Mr. Kircher, as you entered into the 80s and 90s, you already had Boyne Mountain and Boyne Highlands. You had Big Sky out west. And you continued that expansion by buying the Brighton Ski Bowl near Salt Lake City.
Well,
That was a little bit different operation than Big Sky. How did that differ from Big Sky, and how did that fit into the Boyne program?
Well, then we were beginning to grow up. we found that all those things that we talked about were not all that true, that you didn't need all those rooms to attract it. All you had to do was build a ski resort near a major city, and they have a mountain. So that generated into buying Brighton, which was in Salt Lake City, virtually, and they had a base. They were skiing about 500,000 skiers at that time, and those are all lift tickets. So it doesn't take a magic number, magic. You don't have to be a computer operator to understand that a dollar increase is a $300,000 or $400,000 increase in revenue. And we bought it. They had a $5 lift ticket. Well, anybody knew, but everybody else was at 15 and 20. Well, you know damn well that you can squeeze out another dollar, and it's going to give you, you're going to make that much more profit. But well, that was the first sign. Then don't lose the money, and that money, that extra money you're making on price raises in your in a hotel, which is a poison for overhead. So so that's why we went. That's why we changed reverses and reversed ourselves in our business sense and thinking.
Now, even though you bought Brighton, the Brighton Ski Bowl, you still kind of had your heart here at Boyne Mountain, because in 1992 you opened America's first sixth-place chair. And I know you were instrumental behind the thinking in that, along with the Doppelmayr Corporation. What input did you have into that sixth-place chair, and why did you want to bring one here to Boyne Mountain?
In the sixth place?
Yeah.
Well, we wanted to cut our overhead in the number of lifts that you're running and still maintain our productivity. So that goes along with productivity of everything during the 80s and 90s.
The 90s saw you also purchase Crystal Mountain, Washington. How does Crystal Mountain compare with the operations at Big Sky and Brighton?
Well, Crystal Mountain had been an operation that had a lift problem, and they didn't have enough lifts for the number of people they were skiing. And it doesn't take, you don't have to take a genius to tell you that if you increase the lift capacity, you're just going to ski a lot more skiers when you got Seattle in your marketplace.
Now, that same thinking did apply to the newest acquisition near Vancouver.
What's that?
Cypress?
Cypress was the first. Well, we started at Gatlinburg, and Gatlinburg turned into it was a non-skiing operation. Mm-hmm. We can see the dollars that you can pick up. The nearest neighbor is called well, who's our competition now? Anyway, our competitor operates winter and summer, but they don't have much of a winter because they're 1,500 feet lower than we are at Cypress. So at Cypress, we get the snow, and early or open early, by at least a month early. And it's in Canada. It has the same view at the top of the mountain, as we do, as our, as there's a name again.
Cypress, the grouse.
Well, that's called, I got to think of the name of our competitor, but you can scratch that out.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
no
all
problem.
right, okay.
Find out real quick.
Cypress will be competing with Grouse Mountain
Okay.
is the name. Grouse Mountain happens to have a tramway, 125 people tramway going to the top of the mountain. We're going to have to match that with another tramway of some type. What we need to do is build a 6-place gondola which will have more winter capacity, because they're short of winter capacity, and they have long lift lines on this 125 person gondola. We have, Cypress has got a hellacious lift lines. You might get up 2 or 3 times on a lift ticket and a day, and otherwise you're standing in line. So there's enormous pressure for good uphill facilities. They don't care because they're making $1 million a year on their summer operation,
Okay.
and we intend to pick up at least half of that.
Now that fits right in with that Boyne specialty of getting people
That's right.
up the hill.
That's right.
You did the same thing at Brighton by replacing some old rickety lifts with some very modern high-speed lifts, and that improved.
Well,
the
we're
Brighton
taking it,
market.
we're blending more equipment with more opportunity.
Back when you started Boyne USA, and at Boyne Mountain, you saw the need for a hotel, and you said many times what we need is a better hotel. Well, you're starting to develop one now with the Mountain Grand Lodge and Spa. Boyne Mountain will be a very different place from the one that you envisioned probably 50 years ago, but it will be undergoing a complete renaissance. Tell us a little bit about what's going to happen at Boyne over the next year or two, and how you see the change here at the mountain happening.
Well, you take a page out of Grand Traverse book, and you never want to jump into anything all your own. But the Grand Traverse Resort tells us that there's a great opportunity to attract national conventions, or at least improve the conventions you have with spas and extra services and a first-class hotel. When you check in, you have to have someone to carry their luggage, and like the new hotel, the New York hotels, and I think that if you build that type of facility in Michigan, they'll come to Michigan, and we hope in sufficient numbers to pay all the overhead.
Now, in addition to the great hotel, there will be amenities, skating rinks, places for people to recreate, shops. It'll be that village that you might have envisioned many, many years ago.
Well, then a new thing is coming into the picture. The village, every ski area now has to have a village, a shopping center, and we're prepared to meet that and pay the overhead, because we have the other operations supporting us.
Well, you know, even a legend needs help once in a while. And over the years, you've had the good fortune of having many people work with the Boyne family to help develop Boyne USA Resorts. Many of these people have been honored by having ski runs named after them on Disciples Ridge here at Boyne Mountain. And I'm thinking of guys that I knew, like Chuck Mall and currently Art Tebow. Could you talk a little bit about some of the people that really helped Boyne along here and made an impact on the things that you do?
It's obvious we couldn't have done it all alone. But some of the people, one of the persons that helped build us the most was Chuck Mall. Chuck Mall was a good leader, and he had all respect for all the other employees, respected him, and we made a good team. I was the innovator, he was the operator, and he was a good operator. He was also Dutch and frugal, and that's the kind of guy you want handling your money. And he was good at it.
Now, Art Tebow has also played a real big part in the Boyne operation.
Well, it's too big an operation for him to oversee all in that same manner. We've gotten much too big to be managed by one person. And actually he's overworked, really.
Now, it must be gratifying to you because many of your children have embraced the Boyne operation and serve in many capacities throughout the resorts.
If I hadn't had 4 children, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. We'd be selling out or doing something different than we're doing.
You know, someplace on the trails of Boyne Mountain this winter, the young man will be skiing or snowboarding and thinking, well, you know, maybe he'd like to own a ski resort someday. What advice would you give a young person who might be thinking about getting into the ski business or resort business in general?
Have lots of money.
Well, Mr. Kircher, on this occasion of your 85th birthday, I'd like to wish you, on behalf of all the Midwest skiers, a very happy birthday and many returns of the day. We all appreciate you, everything that you've done for Midwest skiers over this 55 years, and it just has been a great honor to talk to you here in your Boyne Mountain.